Well, winter finally decided to show up. It's snowing harder than what it looks like on camera. The camera's not picking up the flakes too great. We have the potential for 5 inches tonight, and then another 3 inches on top of that tomorrow. But this whole weekend looks like it's just going to be a good weekend and not do a damn thing. Snow tonight, snow and 50-mile-an-hour winds tomorrow, and Sunday, snow, high winds, and below freezing. And Monday is kind of a repeat, but it's just the next few days are not going to be fun. And then we got this coming week, that's all kind of nasty. And then the week after this, we're back up in the mid-30s with rain. So it looks like we're going to get 1 week of winter, and then it's going to be it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a freaking mess. That's the only way to put it. But let's see how this week go. Obviously, since I've seen you last, I got both combines are cleaned up. 8700s, I got the tires put back on. Grain trucks are cleaned up. I had the 4450 and the grain cart cleaned up. It's back up to my boss's place. I finished up soil sampling. The muck was interesting. The muck right now, oh boy. I got over the north piece, my grandma's. I got over that with the four-wheeler. I got stuck once. And the south piece, the bigger field, I got stuck twice, and I ended up walking that one. Right now, that ground down there is got like an inch or so of quote-unquote dry, like you can stand on it, but if you fall through that, it's the consistency of soup. It's just water. It's imagine quicksand, but instead of sand, it's Miracle-Gro potting soil. That ground down there right now is just nasty. We can basically write off anything going on down there till spring. It's bad. But I did get soil sampling done. What else did I get done? I hunted down another piece for the applicator project, but I can't get it yet because it's back in a fence row and they can't get the loader tractor back there until the ground freezes up. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but we'll see. But hopefully I can get that next week and we can start on that project. I tried getting lumber around to start working on the barn loft, but I went to Menards to get some prices and dimensions and stuff on what LVLs I need, and they were less than helpful. So I'm going to try Big C Lumber, another smaller line. I don't know if Big C's national or if it's just kind of local here in the Midwest, but I'm going to try a local lumber yard here Monday. I couldn't go tonight because Brian Odom from Wyckoff came up tonight this evening after I got off of work, and we got the 2024 seed order around. I'm sticking with the same beans, trying 2 brand new corn hybrids, and gonna retry this 97-day hybrid that was down here this year because this was not a fair year to try all that out. So I'm gonna try the same hybrid I had back here, but it's gonna go down there on the other field where we had wheat this summer. And I think that gets you caught up as to what I've been doing this week. Not super duper huge productive, but we did get stuff done. It hadn't been the weather's been kind of to begin with, so it hadn't been super duper nice. But I tell you what, I really want to know where all the people were when I was putting the tracks on the combine that told me it was stupid and that I just needed to put the tires on and wait for the ground to freeze, because it is currently January, what day is it? January 12th, and the ground has yet to freeze for more than like a few hours this whole time. We've been getting rain all of November and December. We're just finally getting some snow in January, but it's wet, heavy, nasty snow. And if we get all this wet, heavy, nasty snow and it starts sticking to the corn, and we do get those high winds tomorrow, that's the kind of concoction that can lead to corn getting blown down, because it's not only dealing with some mediocre stalk strength because of the way the year went, but now it's probably tripled its weight in snow, and it's become a sail because it's covered in snow and we got 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So I'm trying to figure out why it was a stupid idea, because all my corn is off and all the equipment's cleaned up and put in the barn, and I have zero stress about whether or not the corn's going to make it, or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why those tracks were a stupid idea. The cost alone is worth the peace of mind of just not having to worry about it anymore. But anyway, I was able to sit down and run the numbers as far as how we turned out this year. Don't ask me about money yet. I haven't had time to sit down and start working on taxes. I got to be in the mindset for that, and the mood hasn't struck me yet. So when I start working on taxes, I'll know how we came out as far as making money. But overall, all things considered, for the way the year went, I don't think we did too bad. So before we talk about how the crops turned out, there are 3 things that we have to talk about to set the year up. First thing being how bone dry we got this spring. So we had the drought this spring, and then there toward the middle of summer we had all that Canadian wildfire smoke that hung around for 4 to 5 weeks, which everybody is in agreement that wildfire smoke had some sort of effect on basically every plant, whether it be a crop, trees, everything growing was affected by that this year. The problem is, I'm sure it's not the first time something like that has happened before, because it's not the first wildfire that's ever been, it's not the last wildfire that's ever going to be, but it's not something that happens so often that is widely studied. So without any sort of numerical information or any research done on it or anything like that, like, how do you determine exactly what the impact of all that wildfire smoke was? Because there was a lot of days, and I can't even remember when that came through. Was it June or July? Somewhere in there. There was a lot of days where you walk outside, it's like, okay, it's sunny out, you can see the sun, but it's like hazy and gray, and just it had an effect, but exactly what kind of effect and how severe of an effect, nobody really knows. But it's something that you got to take into account. And then obviously the wet, nasty fall that we had. So talking about weather, and we'll compare last year to this year. I did not have my rain gauge out last April, so we can't really talk about April too much. But so last year was kind of the opposite, although July turned out about the same as it did last year. We'll get that in a second. So last year was kind of the opposite of this year. Last year we had kind of a wetter, it was more of a normal spring, leaning a little bit toward the wet side, but we had really nice adequate rainfall. Everything came out of the ground. We were good. August hit, we got screwed in August. So last year the biggest thing that was affected was the beans, because corn is developing its ears June, July time frame, and by August it's basically just filling out kernels. It already knows its ear size, and by August it's got enough of a root system developed that if it has to scavenge for water, it can. So the big thing that got affected last year, and it showed, was the beans, because the beans are setting pods in August, September time frame, and that's when we got dry last year. And last year we had a total rainfall of 14.1 inches. So we got to talk about that, because last year was, normal, kind of wet in the middle and then dry at the end. And then I didn't do anything in October last year, because October was nice and dry, and harvest last year went spectacular, and if we could have done that this year, we would have been better off for it. But so this year, April kind of had a normal rainfall. April was kind of cold this year, but we had about 1 3/10 inches in April. May we had about 1 5/10 inches, a little over. and June we had about almost 3 inches. But where it comes in was our last major rainfall came on May 2nd. We had about an inch and a quarter. Then, and we were already fairly dry coming into this because we had kind of a dry second half of winter last fall, or last spring. So that 1.35 inches, or that 1 inch and 3/10 last April, it kept things, it was, soil moisture was normal at that point. Like, it was good. You could go out and you could work ground. You could basically do whatever you wanted. It was nice. So our last significant rainfall amount came on May 2nd. On May 12th we had a 1/10. On the 19th we had a 1/10. And then we go to June. So from May 19th to June 11th, we had nothing. On June 11th, we got 2/10, and then our next major rain event, and this is what saved everything, was on June 13th. So for 4 weeks, we basically survived on less than a ½ inch of rain. And we were also kind of warmer than normal, and because we weren't getting any rain, it was sunny. So these little 2/10 rains were basically gone as soon as they showed up. These basically did nothing. If it wasn't out of the ground already and had a root system developed to take immediate advantage of that little bit of rainfall, it did nothing to get anything going. There was a lot of stuff that sat in the ground, my uncle's field being one of them, that it did not even germinate until June 13th. And then after that, we kind of started getting into a better weather pattern. And then July, we got really wet, had 7 3/10 in July. Most of that actually came toward the end. On July 26th, we had 1.5 inches in 45 minutes. And then on the 29th, we had 3 3/4. So those 2 big rain events were what really set July apart. August was really wet compared to normal. We had 4.5 inches. 2 big 1.5 inch rain events there. September we had 2.5 inches. So during the growing season, we came out ahead of last year because July, August, and September were so wet. We came out at 20.2 inches. And this is all at my house because that's where I got my rain gauge. So some places obviously receive more than that. Some places obviously receive less. But in the growing season, when it mattered, we got 20.2. We just didn't get it here at the beginning when we needed it. But, and this will come into play when we see the bean yields, beans this year really benefited right here. August-September time frame is what really saved our bean crop. Because obviously we had adequate rainfall to set pods. And even tail end of July, beginning of August, there was still corn developing ears because for all intents and purposes, we had corn that wasn't emerged until June 20th, June 18th, June 20th. There was corn that was just starting to come out to VE. So that led to problems with the corn later down the road like we saw. And then October, we ended up with 6.6. So we were already wet basically from July through September, and then October just stacked on top of it, and then we started getting kind of cold at night, and I was worried about my rain gauge freezing, so I didn't leave it out for November. I wish I had, because we never actually got cold enough to freeze in November, but it would have been nice to know what our rainfall was in November, because if it was, it had to have been every bit of that 6 inches, because I think November was wetter than October. So that's kind of where our rainfall came out. Like I say, May, that basically the entire month of May and that first week and a half of June was really where we got hurt pretty bad. I say pretty bad. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. I will say that, because when I finally ran the numbers, I was honestly kind of impressed with how well things turned out. Really, the only thing that sucked was test weight and moisture. Test weight was a little low on the corn. Beans came out just fine, but test weight was a little low on the corn, and the moisture was obviously high because, like that field of my uncle's that we ran last, that had green. That still had green in the leaves the second week in October. That my uncles didn't snap all the green out of it till our first frost in November. But we get to how the crop did. So let me fiddle through here and get the other page from last year so that we can flip back and forth. Okay, so we'll compare with last year, starting with the corn. Last year shelled 11,027 bushels of corn. Corn averaged 172. Average test weight was 57.4, and average moisture was 16.6. So that was last year. This year shelled 18,194 bushels of corn. Corn average was down. It was 163.4, but I can't knock that number because how bad the beginning of this summer went. I didn't know if we were gonna be. I figured we'd be in the 150s. I didn't figure I'd maintain a 160. So corn was down about 9 bushel from last year. But last year was a better corn year. This year was a better bean year just because of the way the rainfall worked out. Test weight was down about 3 points, about 3.3 points, or 3.3 pounds, sorry. 54.7 was the average test weight this year because the average moisture was significantly higher. 19.9, almost 20. So you're looking at 3.5 points higher on moisture average. And like my uncle's was averaging, what did my uncle's average out? My uncle's averaged out at 21.6, and there were some in here that were even wetter than that. So the test weight was mainly due to that higher moisture. And like at my uncle's place, it was because I don't think that corn made it all. I mean, it made it to black layer, but I don't think it made it through the rest of its cycle. Or the rest of its, I mean, black layer is relative maturity, but it's still got a few things that plant has to go through after black layer before it finally decides, okay, we're done. And I think it got frost bit, and I think that's part of the low test weight on that. Plus, that field was the one, it had a lot of cob rot in it, and that was where my damage assessment was coming from at the elevator. And that cob rot doesn't do anything good for your test weight either, but it had cob rot because that field was so wet going into, or still so green going into October. The ears stayed standing up and the tips of the husks had started to open up. And if you went, I should have pulled an ear out of the husk and showed you what it actually looks like, but if you pulled an ear out of the husk, like the bottom yay far up into the husk was just moldy, black, nasty kernels, and the ears were just, and it's partly why I had such a hard time getting that corn clean, was because the cobs were just nasty, rotten. And luckily that was the worst field of it, and it was really the only field I saw it in. But that field was also greener about 3 weeks longer than anything else, because even the muck, which was planted, I planted the muck 2 days after my uncle's, but the muck was up not quite immediately, but the muck came up at least a week and a half sooner than my uncle's, because obviously it's muck, it's wetter. So it's just something to think about. But like I say, I can't complain about them corn numbers at all, because I figured it was going to be a lot worse, and it turned out all right. Beans ended up cutting 2,271, or yeah, 2,271 bushel. Beans, if I leave in that 8-acre piece that the deer ate off, beans averaged 45.1, which even over last year, I lost my page. And this is where we got to talk about how last year we were dry, that August, September time frame when beans were trying to set pods, and this year we were wet. Oop, too far back. Sorry, fumbling around here. So, even leaving that deer damage in, we did 2 bushel better. Beans last year, beans averaged, I guess I should do this. So last year, we cut 3,489 bushel. Beans averaged 43.9, average test weight 57.6, average moisture 11.2. This year, 2,271 bushel. Beans averaged, leaving that deer damage in, beans averaged 45.1. So, almost a bushel, little over a bushel better than last year, leaving that deer damage in. Average test weight was 57.2, so we were just a touch under last year, and average moisture was 12.3, so just a little higher, basically a point higher than last year. Now, if I take that 7 3/4 of an acre out and take 143 bushel out of this number, which there was 143 bushel off of that 7 3/4 acres, that bumps that average bean yield up to almost 50, 49.89. So that, which some people would argue that you need to have every acre counted, and there are other people that say that deer damage field is an outlier. It's not a true representation of how the year actually went, because that was something that you can't really necessarily plan on or control, which that goes for a lot of things, but there's not too many things that'll destroy a deer, that'll destroy a bean field like deer. So, like I say, if you take the 143 bushel out and take the 7 3/4 of an acre out, bumps that up to damn near 50. That's a pretty respectable number for how things turned out. And that would be, basically 44. So, 5.5 bushel an acre better than last year ish. So, and like I say, I count that to 2 things. I think rolling the beans helped significantly. I wish now, of course, at the time I rolled them, I couldn't have done all of them, because I had some fields that had been up long enough that you would have done more damage than good. But I think rolling helped, and like I said, we had that rain August, September when the beans needed it, and that helped out significantly. So, like I say, all in all, really cannot, I mean, did this year suck? Start to finish? Yeah. But the results could have been a hell of a lot worse. I can't knock any of these numbers too bad. So, but that's basically what I got for you. Like I say, I haven't started doing taxes yet, so I can't tell you the money, or can't give you any indicator on the money side. I think I might work on that a little bit this weekend, because it looks like it's gonna, at least on Sunday, it looks like Sunday is gonna be a good day to just say screw it and not leave the house, because Sunday's supposed to be just kind of miserable, mostly because of the cold. But I think that covers all the bases. Like I say, if I don't even want to think about what kind of situation we'd be in if I hadn't have got them tracks, and I decided to wait till the ground would freeze, because I don't know if the ground's gonna freeze. Because yeah, it's supposed to get cold tomorrow, but if we have 8 inches of snow on the ground by the time that cold temperature finally gets here, the ground ain't gonna freeze, because now it's got 8 inches of insulation on it, and you would need a solid week of temperatures that cold to freeze through that snow to get down to freeze the ground. And the following week, we're back up to the mid-30s of rain, so it's just going to be a nasty, muddy mess of 8 inches of melted snow and whatever rain we get, so. But I think we can pretty much write off any chisel plowing, and we could probably write off any stalk chopping. We'll just have to see how things go. But, like I say, we've got a few projects coming up that hopefully I can get that last piece for the applicator. That's not the last piece, but this is the last big piece for that applicator. I need to call and see. There's a place I might take the frame to get sandblasted, so I don't got to try to grind all the paint off, so that I can do the frame modifications that need done. I'll see if they're doing any blasting next week. The way the weather is, they might not be, but if I can get that frame blasted, then we can start cutting the frame and narrowing it up to 30s. Get that last piece that I need here. Start kind of laying everything out on the floor. See what needs to happen there. Monday, I'm going to go see about getting lumber ordered for the hayloft. I think tomorrow, if it's not too cold in the morning, I'm actually going to start getting stuff pulled out of that side of the barn and put in the big barn for now, because I'm going to want that floor space open so we're not tripping over equipment and stuff trying to put beams and floor joists and stuff in there. Got a little bit of work to do on the T, got a little bit of work to do on the 1600. Got some outdoor stuff to get done. I got that brush pile to burn over where I put that hayfield in, which I don't know if I'm going to do any videoing over there or not. That way we don't get his house on video too much. That might just be a me getting it done thing. And when I get done over there, I might move the Mini over to my house. We can start taking trees out there behind the silver shed so that we can start kind of working on that chicken coop. Or getting that turned into a chicken coop. Like I say, we got projects coming up. It's just, and the scary part is, it's only 3 months till spring. I was thinking about that last night. It's like, shit, we're, in the grand scheme of things, not that far away from trying to plant and start all over again. So, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot to do, but that's a whole winter's worth of stuff kind of crammed into an abbreviated winter since we didn't get done with harvest till so late. But I'm glad I was able to get that done, because at the very least, if I didn't have them tracks, a good chunk of my uncles would still be standing, and all the muck would still be standing at a minimum. There'd probably be some other ground that'd still be standing too, but it's done, it's over with. We don't got to worry about it. And for the people that said, am I ever going to use them tracks again? Like, I don't know what you expect. You think I'm going to throw them on there for funsies because the ground's dry and I feel like running tracks? No. If we ever have a winter or if we ever have a fall like this again and it's muddy and I need the tracks, you bet your ass they're going to go back on that combine. There was nothing, putting the tracks on and off the combine now that we redid that frame, that's not bad at all. We get a better mover made to where we can move it with 1 or 2 people instead of having to have somebody in the combine, somebody in the tractor, and somebody following. And have it easier to load and down closer to the ground so that we're not worried about head height. Get a better mover made, and that was the biggest pain in the ass about the whole thing was, and it's not even moving the combine, it was just the way that mover was made was not made for like what we have around here. It was made for Canadian roads. So, but yeah, if it's bone dry next fall, hell no, I'm not putting them tracks back on. Don't need them. Don't know why I would. If we have 7 inches of freaking rain again next October, you can expect to be seeing them tracks back on there. And the best part is, if it starts raining in October, I already have the tracks and they could go on in October instead of having to wait till the end of November to get them on, because I'm trying to scurry around and get things all together and engineer and build and track parts down and whatnot. This time they could just go on and we could just continue on with harvest like normal rather than losing 5-6 weeks waiting on stuff to happen. But anyhow, like I say, I think that takes care of everything we needed to talk about here. So sorry it turned into a 30-minute video. It wasn't supposed to, but with that being said, that's it for this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.